Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Collinwood for YouTube. Back with another Dark Shadows video for you guys and gals. This is episode 102. And this episode picks up right where it left off. At the end of the previous episode, you saw Roger Collins holding his hand over Victoria's mouth, telling her not to scream. And it picks up right there. And here you have the result of Roger says, if I remove my hand from your mouth, you promise not to scream. You do realize we're the only ones in the house. And she nods her head. And after this, Roger sort of guides her in the drawing room. He closes the drawing room doors, and they're having a conversation about the night Bill Malloy died. And Roger lays out that the call that came at 10:30 at Bill Malloy's house was from him. So this isn't filler. You are getting a bit of revelation here. Does Roger paint himself as a suspect here? I would say yes, but I'd also say he does too good of a job of not making himself too much of a suspect. If you're a murderer, you're not revealing this. You're not revealing this to somebody. I don't care who you are. You are not revealing this. Because in every way, you're sort of giving your alibi almost more so than you are the murder. He tells Vicky that he did arrange to meet Bill at Lookout Point. And he also tells Vicky that, he left the house a little after, whatever. Well, a little after 10:30. It wasn't too long after 10:30 he left the house. And she goes, but you made me swear to the sheriff. He goes, I know. And he goes, now, you'll often hear about people walking places in Collinsport, especially whether it's walking to Lookout Point or walking to the beach beneath Lookout Point or walking into town. Roger did not. Now, this is continuity. I got to give the writers credit for remembering this. Because it's been a while since that episode happened. A long while. Roger says that he took his car, which would be true because Roger did drive into town for the meeting. So Roger taking his car to Lookout Point prior to the meeting would make sense. Again, I gotta give. This is where I give the writers a lot of credit because to remember what happened, great job. That's all. That's all. I'm impressed. I'm also giddy as a kid. So can you tell? You have this moment where Roger Collins says he saw Bill Malloy, but Bill Malloy didn't see him, which I felt is a bit cryptic. It's like really but I get why. He says, he goes, when I looked around at Lookout Point, I didn't see Bill. He goes, so I stood at the top of Lookout Point. I looked down, and there was Bill. So Bill Malloy had fallen. This is why Roger believes the coroner's report, because he was the first to see Bill's body officially. Well, other than the killer. he's more the first to see the result of something he doesn't know happened. He believes Bill honestly just slipped and fell. Or at least that's what he's telling himself. Roger is the type of character that would rather tell himself something to ease his own mind and to ease others' curiosity. And in every way, it's a defense mechanism. I can't blame him for using it here because he looks like a murderer at times. But is he? I would say no. And not just because I know the result. I would say that this is where I feel the writers were the most deliberate. Out of all the people questioned, the two people that are questioned the most are Roger and Sam. And Matthew Morgan is only really questioned once, and it's not that big of a deal. Like, the questions aren't as intense. And you never see Matthew questioned again. So I wanted to bring that up here in this episode because it's going to be important. So as this conversation is going on, meanwhile, at the old house, David has walked to the old house. I love how twice in this episode, well, actually 3 times in this episode, you're not just getting background shots. You're actually getting on location shots. You're getting David walking to the old house, He's going up the steps, and you're going to get that later with Matthew Morgan. My favorite thing you're going to get is later on, and I'll mention that here in a moment. So David goes to the old house and he addresses, he sees Josette's portrait and he begins talking to her. He says, "Great grandmother, will you talk to me?" And Josette's portrait begins to glow. Again, for those who have never watched Dark Shadows, Josette's ghost came out of the portrait. And this, by the way, I've talked about how the word lady in white gets mentioned. Yes, it gets mentioned here in this episode by David, that Josette is referred to sometimes as the lady in white because Josette is wearing a white dress. By the way, yes, it is a wedding dress she's wearing in the portrait. So, just saying. I really do need to get into the whole fairy tale thing again for those who've never watched Dark Shadows, and I'll get into that here probably by the end of this video. I'll have to remind myself, kick myself hard. You also have, they cut away from this scene to the Blue Whale. And at the Blue Whale is Burke Devlin and Carolyn having dinner together. So Carolyn is officially on her date with Burke, and they're having a fun time, jokingly having a conversation, having conversations about the family feud, etc. So, and Burke is completely unaware at this point in time about Roger knows about the pen, that Vicky knows he had it. Remember what Burke said just not too long ago: "If I felt you were in any danger, I wouldn't let you go back." I'm not too impressed with Burke here in this episode. You're going to find out why. Meanwhile, back at the old house, again, this is where we see Matthew Morgan come up to the old house, another location shot with his lantern. We've seen this before where he came up to the old house. This time it's not Vicky and David, it's just David. David hears somebody coming. He blows out the candle and hides behind an old chair. Again, you can tell that no one has lived in the old house for a long, long time. It's dusty, it's moldy, it looks so old, it looks so run down. It looks like it could fall in probably. I love how there David says, when he comes in and he's standing between the foyer and the drawing room, he is saying that, look, I know you're in here. I saw the light. He's not stupid. And it's David gets up. It's me. It's David. And he goes, well, what are you doing here? And he says, I was visiting Josette, visiting the ghost. And he goes, huh? The ghost. So David talks how he visits the ghost in the old house. There's more than one, by the way. So it's something we've heard that there's more than one. And he does talk about Miss Winters here. This is where Matthew Morgan finds out that David tells Matthew Miss Winters knows who did kill Bill Malloy, and she says his father. Has she told anybody this note? So Matthew Morgan, you could tell by the look on his face, he's really nervous. This is in every way they're telling the audience Matthew's your killer here in this episode. They may not directly say that word, but they're letting you know that there's something going on here. Now they're going to reveal it in another way, which I do like how it gets revealed. But in a lot of ways, they're teeing it up that, hey, this guy's probably your killer here. Which I do think they were dropping a lot of subtle hints earlier, but here they're dropping a little more of a subtle hint, like nudge, nudge, wink, wink, So back at the Blue Whale, where Carolyn and Burke are having dinner. I like how there's a conversation between Burke and Carolyn about a potential relationship between Roger and Victoria Winters. Yeah, no, that's not happening. So, and Carolyn was talking about how her uncle got mad about the pen. She told him that Vicky knew that he lost the pen, and Burke's like, what? Now, here's where I say I wasn't too happy with Burke, because once Burke learns that Vicky may or may not be in danger here, or at least learns that Burke knows Vicky knows, Burke is just so nonchalant about it. Now, he does say, I have to get up and make a phone call and make it an excuse to get out of here. But it's just like, if you were really this gives a little credence to, do you really believe Roger's a killer or not? Because if you really did, would you be this subtle? No. I can't believe you would be this subtle. You would be this, how do I put this, nonchalant. You're not. He's not really putting any urgency into leaving, other than, I have to make a phone call, and he calls Blair, or he calls whatever, but it's his excuse to get out of the rest of the evening and to cut it short, though Carolyn has had a good time. So you have, make sure I get this right here. You have the appearance of Josette's ghost. I forgot to mention that. So once the phone rings, it's Burke isn't calling his lawyer. He's calling Victoria. He's calling Collinwood. and he's checking on Victoria Winters. Yeah, huh? Is Roger there? Uh-huh. Does he know you're talking to me? I don't think. Uh-huh. Like there's this going on. So Vicky is going to leave the great house here. She's going by leave. I mean, she's just gonna get her coat and walk out. And what I love most about this is you get a location shot of her coming out of Collinwood, and you can see Collinwood in the background, and there's Vicky standing. It's not just a set; it's a location shot, and you can tell. Again, this is something we're going to lose when Barnabas comes around. We're not going to get really location shooting, which I wish we would have still, because it's not that we got like a bunch of location. It's we get location to give you a sense of realism instead of just seeing a set all the time. And again, Cy Thomasoff sets complemented the show very, very well. But it was also nice to see a location shot too. Just saying. It's a fun episode to watch here. I love the reemergence of Josette's ghost. Simply because the portrait glows. The portrait is glowing in front of David, then it stops. Then when Matthew and David leave the old house, the portrait is glowing, and you hear that ominous ghost music. And Josette comes right out of the portrait. It's one of the coolest looking things ever, especially in the early Dark Shadows episodes. All right, guys. I hope you guys have a good day, or a good morning, I should say. Take care.